All right, what's good, everybody? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let me make sure that we're good. Make sure you guys can hear me and everything as well in a second. But what's good, everybody? Good morning. Today being Wednesday, the middle of the week. Today is Wednesday, right? All right. Just want to make sure. Sometimes I'll be losing track of the days. But yeah, being Wednesday, we should be having some great opportunities for trading. There is also news, so I just want to take a look at some things before that as well. So just want to give it a couple seconds, let everybody else join on before we begin so nobody's missing out on anything. But yeah, good morning, everybody. Hopefully everybody's good. Let me make sure you guys can hear me. Yeah, being Wednesday. Perfect. You guys can, in fact, hear me. Beautiful. All right, everybody. So again, I'm just going to give it a couple more seconds, see if anybody else joins on before we begin. But before we do that, or while we wait, rather, let me actually just look at Bitcoin. Okay, not really doing much anymore. I wanted to see if this was if Bitcoin was actually pushing up anymore, but I don't see it doing so right now. So just keeping my eye on it, just to see what it initially does. I'm looking at this level of structure to hold before a potential resell. If that's broken, then I'll probably start investing into Bitcoin a little bit, see if it does in fact reach some more highs. But we'll wait to see what initially happens around there. What's good, everybody? Good morning. Let me actually get this set up. I got my Red Bull in front of me. I got my mic right here. Let me put my phone somewhere where if you guys do have questions, I'll be able to see the chat and everything. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, if there's any specific markets you want to take a look at, feel free to let me know as well. I really want to make sure that, especially if this is your first time on a call, if you've never been in a session with myself, this is the first time you're being introduced to these calls. I'm big on teaching. I'm big on educating and really giving value. So make sure if you do have questions, feel free to let me know. I want to make sure I'm speaking on relevance, things that are actually going to help you in the future that you're going to learn from now and you're going to keep from years. Obviously, I want to build this community, build our trading, hub, if you will, through just value, transparency, and a ton of profit. So definitely, if you guys have questions, feel free to let me know. I am taking a look at the chat. But yeah, if not, I'll be just looking at some charts, see if there's anything that we could look for potential trades in. Excuse me. Excuse me. Damn. I'm over here. I think I'm like losing my voice again. I have no idea how. But one thing we do have to take into consideration is that we do have news pretty much all day today for the US dollar, Canadian pound. Pretty much every major pair is going to have a lot of news. So that could bring tons of volatility in a direction that we can't predict. Meaning that we can mark up a chart with perfect technical analysis, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to work in our favor. So excuse me again, I do want to keep that into consideration with all the markets that we're looking at, especially the US dollar, obviously, because we're trading the New York session. That is going to be a very relevant market and a very volatile market. So I want to make sure that we're paying attention to that as well. So if you guys are trading today, by all means, feel free, be very careful. Don't do anything too crazy. Don't use increased lot sizes or anything in that nature. Just make sure you're using proper risk. And if anything, just sit in your hands. There's nothing wrong with not trading or not finding opportunities, especially in a day like this. But obviously, if there is, I want to make sure that we can find it for ourselves as well. So yeah, let me go ahead and mark up some charts, see if there's anything we can look at. I personally like to always start off with gold. Gold is my base pair, if you will, and my favorite pair as well, or market rather. This is going to show us what the true direction of what the US dollar is most likely going to be doing. Obviously, if gold is increasing in value or bullish or buying, you're going to see a decrease in value for the US dollar, meaning that it's not going to be stacked up or working in favor with other pairs. So if it's also selling, we know that the US dollar is gaining strength, and we should be looking at other markets to actually go with the initial dollar. So I always look at gold first, or for the most part first. And it's just to get a strong idea of what the markets will be giving us. So obviously right now I'm on a higher time frame, being the daily, but if anybody has been on a call with me before, you always know me. I'm always going to scale to higher time frames just to see a few things. And I know if you've been on a call with me before, I've probably broken down gold and you're probably annoyed of it, but this is exactly what trading is. It's especially if you're trading one pair. I know a lot of individuals, they always ask me how many pairs should we initially look at and be trading. I personally trade them all. If there's an opportunity, trade it. But if you're trading, especially for people who trade one pair, this is all you're doing. You're understanding that market fully, so that way your entries are accurate. You're able to execute with confidence, and that confidence and accuracy is what's going to bring you profits in trading, always. So I want to make sure I'm on a higher time frame to understand a few things. My hat is like, I'm over here adjusting my hat. This thing is sweating. So I want to make sure that I'm looking at the higher time frame. I want to make sure that if I look on like the daily, the weekly, I can understand the initial trend. Is it bullish? Is it bearish? Or is it in a range? Or the second thing I want to see is, are we at a level of structure, a strong level of structure that could dictate a potential reversal? That's just simply called that, a potential reversal zone. So being on the weekly, I'm going to mark this up and identify the fact that we are currently at a pretty significant level of structure, being resistance. Because if we look left, we can see previous respect. I'll just draw it out in case anybody can't see it. So we have respect here, we have respect here, and this is the current market where we're finding some respect there as well. So I'm going to get rid of these so our chart looks clean. So now that I have an understanding of what the weekly is doing, I need the other time frames to tell me the same thing again, right? I want to now scale down to the daily, and once I scale down to the daily, are there any other factors or actions or clues that the market is leaving behind that I could identify that can tell me what's going to happen next? And there's a few things. For one, excuse me, you always want to make sure that you're checking your candlestick patterns, if there is, or candle variance. In this case, we are getting a bunch of bearish candle variance. We are seeing that the market is showing us a level of rejection, and we can see even more now with this daily candlestick, the current candle. And this still has a lot of time to close. This has about 10 hours, as you see here on the right-hand side on TradingView. And if this can, in fact, leave a wick to the upside in a small-bodied candle or even a large bearish engulfing, that will show us that this resistance is, in fact, going to be held. Why is that important? Because when we now scale down to smaller time frames, we get more detail to identify our entries. That's the most important thing. I know everybody's like, where do I buy? Where do I sell? This is where. So if you go down to now the 4 hour, what are some other factors that we can identify? So let me get rid of all drawings. And we can see a few things. Now, I didn't see this before. Let me see if this is actually. So I was seeing if we can actually add that trend line. Let me see if we can actually add it better like this. So I like that a little bit more as far as the trend line is concerned. We do have 3 touches of the trend line here. We have our base, we have our secondary, and we have our trigger. The trigger being the third touch. Why is that important? Because the third touch is what validates the trend line, and you have an initial entry there. If obviously we were at that time, you could have placed an entry with further confluence at that point. But it's also important because if that trend line is then broken to the downside, meaning it breaks below, we can then identify that maybe buyers are no longer in the market and sellers are definitely taking over, and you can still use that trend line for an entry if it is retested. So we're just mapping up more detail on this time frame, or a smaller time frame rather, to see if we can identify further bearish confluence. Now, wrong button, there we go. So I wanted to see if this was actually giving us a double top, but it is not. A lot of individuals might say it is, but for a double top, I wanted to actually meet the real highs, and it is not. But we can map this up as obviously our level of resistance, but we can also start seeing that, or starting to see that we have a high point and we're now creating lower highs, which could be an early indication that buyers are getting exhausted and sellers are definitely coming in. So we're going to map this up a little bit more. Now, all I'm doing here is just marking up my structure points that are important. And this is just market structure, meaning that if this low here is broken, and obviously these previous highs, that the market is obviously going to give us a bearish tone. And that also is coupled with the idea that if that trend line is broken, that can give us the corrective move to then enter. So all I'm doing is mapping up my chart to identify an entry. Now, we have the majority of all of our analysis that we need for the 4 hour, if I'm correct. Let me just delete these. So, yeah, pretty much on the 4 hour, this is all I'm going to need. If anybody's wondering if I would use a fib in this case, I would not. The only reason being is because this doesn't have an impulse yet, and you can't measure, a retracement if there is none. So that cannot be a part of my analysis currently. But right now, on the 4 hour, that's all I would need. Now, on the 1 hour, which we're currently on right now, again, you have to scale. You need to make sure that you're identifying each and every time frame that they're telling you the same thing. In this time frame, if there are any patterns, if there are any candle variants, you want to pay attention to that. In this case, don't necessarily see too much. Obviously, we could just see the initial rejection or that sell down. We actually do have a candle pattern I don't know why it's called this, but it's called the three black crows. So we have three candles here showing us after a level of a bullish move. We have a bearish candle variant or pattern, if you will, that is showing us that sellers are in fact taking over. So in this case, I know I'm breaking this down like crazy and I'm talking a lot, but this is exactly how you break down a chart fully. This is how you understand the full process of identifying an entry point. That's the misconception that I think a lot of people have as well, is that once you jump onto a chart, you immediately know an entry. There has to be some due diligence work. There has to be some type of effort. There has to be some form of paying attention to what the market is giving you to find that. And that's the biggest, and I struggled with that a lot. I thought that it was just a strategy. You learn the strategy and then you enter. You have to understand the full movement, the full direction, because I think a lot of people right now would still think that gold is a strong buy, not seeing on the higher time frame that we are at a potential reversal zone. So looking at gold right now, again, we can't do too much on it because we do have news coming out. But I am going to mark this up here on the 4 or the 1 hour rather. Each time frame has its own markup. Each time frame does have its own structure. So I'm just marking this up because, I mean, that is a level of previous resistance that was broken to the upside and is now being retested. Why is that important? Because let's say news comes out and that structure is respected, but it comes right back up to at least the 1 hour structure point and creates a double top. It can't break above that. That could either be one of two things that you can use for. You can identify potential buys on a small time frame to at least back up to these highs, or identify if it's broken, you know for a fact that this is going to continue to sell. It's just tacking on other confirmations. Like again, you have to have each time frame showing you that it is in fact lining up with everything else. Since we saw on the weekly, the daily, and the 4 hour, or from the weekly, every other time frame, daily, 4 hour, 1 hour, they all have to tell you the same thing. So right now, if news comes out and it comes out, negative for the dollar, and we get a push back up to here, and this is respected, by all means, I'll be looking for a really strong sell from this area. Reason being is because during news, you get a strong impulse, but the market usually corrects itself in the true direction. That sudden impulse or that fundamental news sometimes does last a really long time or affects the market that that was traded for a while. But there are times, and what I've noticed a lot with US news as well, it'll just get that sudden impact and then mosey back on into the real direction it was intended on going. So this is why I'm marking it up in this manner. I really want to make sure that I'm getting the full idea of what gold is doing. So if there is a buy, I can buy from here, and if there is a sell setting up from there, I could take profits and then sell for the bigger move. So I like to identify every aspect. But yeah, that is our full breakdown here on gold. If there is any questions, feel free to let me know. I see some people. Let me know if there's any specific markets you want to take a look at. If you're confused on something, also let me know. It's important, again, that I stay on relevance or speak on relevance to really help you guys out to the best of my abilities. But let me know what's good. If you guys don't have questions, then I'll just kind of end the session, or not end the session, but if you guys don't have questions or really need help and just paying attention, I get that, but I want to make sure that I'm helping you guys out. So I'll end the session a little early just in case, just for that, if so I don't take too much of your time. And I also want to make sure that I'm paying attention to the news for students as well. But again, I'm just here to make sure that if you guys have questions, if you are confused on something, if you do need help, I'm here. I can be an outlet. I could be a source that you guys can, reach out to actually learn from. So let me go ahead and see if there is anything else for us. Gold. Let me actually take a look at US30. I do want to see. Okay. So what I was originally looking at with US30 was if this, which you can currently see that it is, if this was broken, obviously buyers are going to be or taking over. So the next real, excuse me, the next real structure point is there. So, excuse me. So this being the next real resistance or structure, let me actually put this here. PRZ, again, just stands for potential reversal zone, identifying where the market can in fact sell from, but we can see that it's currently not a sell and we should be looking for buys, especially, and I'm only on the daily, but these wicks here, that little segment, that area of price and movement, that's important, right? Because you can see that sellers were really trying to push back down after that strong buy, but buyers are way too strong and just continue to push higher. And even here we have another breakup structure there. So me being well, that is just the idea there. So same structure, just I didn't see that lined up for a second, but yeah, same structure. So since that level was not respected and broken above, Let me scale down to a smaller time frame, see if there's any buy entries that we could look. Oh, I could kind of already see one. So I'm just getting rid of everything. It kind of already came to retest. So all I'm doing here is just marking this up. Now, this is not considered for me a level of resistance right now. That is just something that if I see that broken, obviously that's giving me the indication that buyers are definitely taking over. And I can do one of two things. I can use that as a retest spot if it is broken to the upside, or I can trade the breakout, meaning that if the market is going to break above that point, it'll have the volatility to continue. So I want to make sure if it can continue, I could trade that initial breakout. But right now, if it can come back to a level of structure or an entry point, all I'm doing is mapping out where the previous buys came from. If you don't know what I mean, let me just get rid of a few things so that way you guys can see, and it's that. You see how, or actually I'll replay it a little bit more. I'll replay it there. So you can see that this was a resistance point at one time. The market tried to break above. You can see the wicks above that level of structure showing a level of strong rejection. So that was a level of resistance, but what ended up happening was buys happened from that point. The breakout or a breakup structure is still considered an action, and that should also be considered a significant level of structure, the price. Because if buys happen from there before, buys can happen from there again. So what we're going to do is, it didn't quite reach that area, not yet at least. It kind of came back. If I drew my entire zone and we take into account these wicks here, you can consider that a retest. I personally would not. I like to see a full correction back down here. I guess you can consider that the actual correction. Go from swing high, swing low. And let me replay this to here just to see. Yeah, I guess you can consider that the initial correction and retest at that point. So at this point, I don't actually see it coming to correct it anymore. I would actually see it breaking above. So with US30, which is the risky aspect, I personally don't like trading breakouts. I would actually, in this case, trade the breakout only because it already came to retest that level of structure. Oh, my fault. I thought somebody text me real quick. But I do think that if I can see the break above here, I'll probably trade the breakout. So in case anybody wants to know, this is what my trade would initially look like. So we do get a break above, and I'll even put it above that wick there. You can put a buy stop right at that level. My stop loss, honestly, would, because US30 is US30, my stop loss would be pretty close. I'd put it actually right there, and then my take profit would be, I wouldn't even have one. I would just hold on to that for dear life, to be honest. So I'd do something like that. Now, obviously, if you're not paid, I wouldn't even be patient enough to really hold that for that long, to be honest. But if you are patient enough, I mean, that's Christmas early, no matter what lot size is used. And again, as you see, my take profit is just coming to a previous level of structure and resistance. And that's really about it. But yeah, it doesn't seem like we have any questions. So what I'll do is we'll conclude for today. I just wanted to make sure that I made myself available to anybody who needed help. If you guys did in fact have any questions or just needed anything in general, I just wanted to make sure that I was available for you guys. But yeah, oh, this is from yesterday actually. This is in our Discord. This is still very active if you guys want. It is risky because of news. We were in great profits for a second. As you see right here, we're in really nice profits, but as the week is news ridden and has a bunch of high level impact news, it's probably just going to be really choppy and wonky. So I'm going to be very careful with everything that I'm doing, especially with all of my trading, because a lot of this can go haywire in a second. But yeah, what we'll do is we'll conclude for today. Again, I wanted to just make sure that I'm keeping myself available for anybody who needs help. If you guys don't have any questions for the day, I'll make sure that I don't waste anybody's time. I don't want to keep you guys on if there's no need to be on with you guys. But yeah, I'll be back on first thing tomorrow morning as well, Thursday morning. Tomorrow being Thursday morning, and we'll see if there's any opportunities for us to trade there. If there is any questions, feel free to ask at that time as well. If you come up with a question during the day and you quite didn't have one now, you can go ahead and be in our Discord, or ask in our Discord rather. If you're not in the Discord, feel free to join in the description below. The link is there for everybody to join, and you can ask questions there. I'll be more than happy to answer any and all questions and really go from there. But yeah, appreciate everybody. I'll see you guys first thing tomorrow morning, and if you guys need any help, any questions, feel free to reach out. All right, everybody, appreciate you guys.